We want to thank the Promoting Enduring Peace group for their persistence and their faith and hard work for peace for all these many years. And we especially want to thank this evening all those persons who have worked in the firm faith that peace is possible even in our day. Ellis and Howard for hosting us today and for keeping us at their home, and all of you for being here tonight. I feel rather ill at ease receiving this award, knowing full well that Gandhi would have objected to it very much. So instead, I do want to receive the award. I'm accepting the award, the Gandhi Peace Award, this evening on behalf of a young Jewish woman from New England who was killed on our picket line, our first martyr, at a sugarcane field near Belle Glade, Florida, at about 2 o'clock in the morning on January 25th, 1972. She was 19 years old. Gandhi said, "Those who die unresistingly are likely to still the fury of violence by their wholly innocent sacrifice." I also want to accept the award on behalf of our second martyr, Naji Daifala, a young Arab from South Yemen, a farm worker, immigrant, who was beaten to death in the streets of Kern County in Lamont, California, during our second great strike on August 15, 1973. Naji was 19 years old. Gandhi says, "He who meets death without striking a blow fulfills his duty 100%. The result is in God's hands." I also wish to accept the award on behalf of our third martyr, Juan de la Cruz, 60 years old, from Mexico, a farm worker, who was shot down on a picket line near Arvin, California, 2 days after Naji was killed at our second table grape boycott and strike. He was killed around 2 o'clock in the afternoon by a strike breaker who came with an automatic rifle and shot at the whole picket line. And Gandhi says, "To lay down one's life for what one considers to be right is the very core of nonviolence." Then I also like to accept the award on behalf of our fourth martyr, Rufino Contreras, a lettuce farm worker. He was gunned down by company supervisors during the lettuce strike on February 10th, 1979, in Calexico, California, around 10 o'clock in the morning. He was 28 years old, married, a wife, and 2 children. Gandhi says, "There is no such thing as defeat or death in nonviolence." And then, last, I'd like to accept this award on behalf of our fifth martyr, Rene Lopez, 21 years old, a dairy worker who was killed with a gun, with a shot to the head, while he had just stepped out of a voting booth and had just voted to be represented by our union near Fresno, California, around 10 o'clock in the morning. Rene was 21 years old. And Gandhi says, in nonviolence, the bravery consists in dying, not in killing. We want to receive this award in their memory. We want to share with you now a short video that was prepared for our union entitled Wreath of Grapes. It's a 14-minute video that is a very powerful video that illustrates very graphically what we're confronted with. We have brought copies of the video, and they will be issued out to you after the program. And those of you who can and want to make a contribution would accept that. So we can run the video or the film now. It's a struggle that has lasted for almost 100 years. And it's a struggle that workers have lost every time, with one exception, maybe. We're still struggling. But agribusiness in California developed, unlike most other areas. The crops and the methods were developed to fit a labor force that was already there without jobs. So that the Chinese came and they were brought to build the railroads. When the railroads were done building, they had this mass of workers without jobs. And the beginning of agribusiness then was to develop labor-intensive crops because the labor was there. And they soon found out that having more workers and jobs also meant being able to keep the wages down, the conditions, and keep unions out. So agribusiness in California then and now throughout the United States has worked very hard. And they control immigration policy. And they have controlled immigration policy for many years to always keep a surplus labor force, to keep the unions out, the wages down, the conditions where they're at. And this has been the biggest weapon against the unionization of workers, that surplus labor force. Also, to keep the farm workers from getting the protection that other workers have to organize and bargain collectively under the National Labor Relations Act has been very helpful to them. And so with a combination of those two, plus that in agribusiness, the labor force is a cycling labor force or a coming in and going out. We estimate that the labor force, by and large, stays in the fields about 7 to 10 years. And the ones that are young enough to escape will escape to industry, to marginal industry. And so you have a constant flow in and flow out of workers. Plus the fact that jobs are, as you know, very seasonal, intermittent, so poses difficult problems for unions to organize. When we began organizing workers, actually working with farm workers back in the early 50s through community organizations, we knew from our own experience that we would never win a strike. It would be almost impossible to win a strike in any setting in California, Florida, Arizona, those places, because of the surplus labor force, because the Mexican border is only a few hours away from most of the strikes in California, because of the labor contractor system is highly organized, it's a strike-breaking force, that we were going to need outside help. And so we went to Gandhi, and we learned that he also needed a lot of help. and came up on the boycott even before we started the union. Dolores Huerta, myself, and a few others who started the union knew that a boycott was needed to be able to win. And that was planned 10, 12 years before we started the union back in 1962. And so we have had 52 boycotts, some you've never heard of and some you have. Yellow wine, lettuce, grapes 1, grapes 2, and now grapes 3. And they have worked. And they have worked because of the support of millions of people like you throughout the United States and Canada and other parts of the world. The growers are now, in this third boycott, are feeling the effects of the great boycott where it hurts the most, right in their own pocket. Last year, the growers had a bumper crop of grapes. They predicted high returns from a multi-million-dollar advertising campaign from what they called, and you heard this, the natural snack. But millions of dollars could not buy out millions of people who had learned to say no to grapes. The growers did not count the boycott. Last year they had a hard time moving the grapes from the cold storages into the marketplace. Shipments of grapes arriving in all major cities were down by 11% from 1987. At the same time, their warehouses were getting full of grapes. And to give you an idea of the magnitude of the growers' problem, at the end of 1987 grape season, there were about 4.5 million boxes of grapes in cold storage. At the end of the 1988 season, they had over 9 million boxes of grapes in cold storage, almost double. The growers could not sell their grapes. The prices dropped drastically. For instance, in California, which is a major market, Los Angeles, because it's close, doesn't cost so much money to transport the grapes there and so forth, they were selling grapes for as low as 29 cents a pound, 3 pounds for $1. Growers were caught in a price slump as boycotters began to say no to grapes, first in California, then throughout the United States and in Canada, then in other places, in other parts of Western Europe. From 1986 to 1987, per capita consumption of grapes dropped by 6%. That's the growers' own figures. They have not released the figures for 1988, but we estimate that that drop may be even more than another 6%. There's also dissension now among the growers' ranks. Let me quote you from an article in the San Diego newspaper a few weeks ago. Quote, "The boycott is adding tremendous stress that farmers are not prepared to deal with." This comes from Don Lobb, who is a Fresno grape grower and also the president of the Farm Bureau in Fresno. Another one, quote, "If the table grape industry says it doesn't hurt us at all, then I think we're damn liars. Boycotts do tend to deter consumers." End of quote. Harry Kubo, the Nisi Farmers League, also grape growers. The boycott is working because millions of people have joined together in that, what we call a boycott, which we don't really know what it really is, because it's something that begins to grow in people and begins to spread itself by word of mouth mostly, until in 1970, when we won our first boycott, according to the polls, 17 million Americans were not buying grapes. And today we estimate we're about 12 million. Now we have 3 generations of grape boycotters. So across America, people are joining together telling the growers that the workers need to be protected from pesticides, that the growers need fair and free elections, and that the growers need to sit down and bargain in good faith with those workers who do want a union, and to use collective bargaining as a way to resolve the issues that confront them. We have known for many years that pesticides used in agriculture pollute the air, the earth, the water. They endanger animals and humans. Residues are found in the tissue of newborn infants and even in mother's milk. Pesticide laws are being trampled beneath the feet of self-interest. Blatant violations of California laws are constantly ignored. And worst of all, the use, the indiscriminate and even the illegal use of dangerous pesticides has radically increased in the last decade, causing illness, permanent disability, and even death. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, warned finally 2 years ago that pesticide residues being found in a growing number of food products, that some poisons registered for use in the last 30 years cause cancer, mutations, and birth defects, that most chemicals on the marketplace have insufficient and sometimes fraudulent test results, that underground water supplies of 38 states are already tainted, and that farm workers suffer some pesticide-induced illnesses in alarming numbers. It's estimated 300,000 farm workers are poisoned by pesticides each year. You, the consumer, must be alerted now that no one can actually define or measure so-called safe exposure to residual poisons that accumulate in the human body, because environments differ and each person's tolerance is unique. What might be safe statistically for the average healthy 25-year-old male might irreparably harm an elderly consumer, a child, or the baby of a pregnant mother. What we do know absolutely is that human lives are worth more than grapes, and that innocent-looking grapes on the table may disguise poisonous residues hidden deep inside where Washington cannot reach. Here are 5 major threats to your health that cling to California table grapes. Parathion. Parathion is a highly poisonous insecticide, similar to nerve gas. We're told parathion is responsible for many deaths throughout the world. Phosphorus is another similar organophosphate pesticide, also similar to nerve gas, also highly toxic, causes birth defects, it's a carcinogen. Dynaseb, a highly toxic herbicide that we demanded be banned back in 1984. EPA now has banned Dynaseb, but it's a curious kind of ban because you see they're still permitted to use it wherever there are supplies. Even though the law just changed, they still use it because that's kind of the gentleman's agreement. And so we ban finally when there's no more to use. And then we have methyl bromide, which is used in grapes very in the beginning when the grapes are planted. And the big argument with the growers, they say, but we used that 3 years ago when I planted my vineyards. Why do you want to ban it? And we say, because we just happen to have found people being poisoned in vineyards with methyl bromide that was used 20 years, 15, 10 years ago. And then we have the worst of them all, Cap-10. A proven cancer-causing, birth defect-producing agent is a fungicide that is used on grapes before and after harvest. And that's the one that's causing a lot of the problems. And that's the one that caused Felipe Franco's deformities. Cap-10 is used in grapes. Half of all the Cap-10 used in California is used in fresh grapes. The EPA came out not long ago with a report banning the use of Cap-10 on a number of vegetables and fruits because it is known, they said, to cause cancer and birth defects. But to add insult to injury, that the EPA did not ban the use of Cap-10 on table grapes, even though half of all the Cap-10 used in California agriculture, as I said earlier, is used on table grapes, even though the legal tolerance level for Cap-10 residues on grapes is twice as high as on apples, even though the most frequently found pesticide residue by the California Department of Agriculture on table grapes is Cap-10. And that's not enough. They have this curious way of setting those tolerance levels. West Germany banned Cap-10 about 2-3 years ago. Canada has enough information to ban Cap-10 if they wanted to do it. In Western Europe, the tolerance level on Captain ranges from 5 to 15 parts per million, but the highest is 15. In our country, the tolerance level set by EPA on Captain is 50 parts per million. How can that be? How can that be? We know we Americans are tough, but I don't know that we're that tough. Statistics and news articles don't relate the real cost. This is the cost that we're here. This is the reason we're here tonight. It's the human anguish that originates from poisons in our food. They don't tell the tragedies that we see and are involved in personally on a daily basis. Today, farm workers are dying. Our children are dying. The Central Valley of California is one of the richest agricultural areas in the world. And it's in the midst there, in its midst, there are clusters of children with cancer. McFarland, you saw in the video. Delano, Bakersfield, Fowler, Early-Mart, Rosamond, town after town, little children are being stricken with cancer, are being born with physical defects, and are dying. In McFarland, six children have died of cancer, and 7 more have been diagnosed with cancer and probably will die before the end of the year. The childhood cancer rate is 400% above normal in McFarland. And we are finding more and more children in towns all over the valley. Parents fear for the lives of their children, and they ask with fear in their voices, where will this deadly pain strike next? Tremendous insecurity among the workers, the families, and farm workers are suffering from nerve disorders, liver and kidney problems, sterility, unexplained illnesses. Farm worker women have high rates of miscarriage. Their children are often born with deformities. Children like Felipe Franco. Felipe is a bright 7-year-old who always has a smile for you. You saw in the video. Like other children, Felipe someday wants to be independent. But Felipe is not like other children. He was born without arms and legs. Felipe's mother, Ramona, worked in the grape vineyards until her 8th month of pregnancy. She was exposed to Cap-10, known to cause cancer and birth deformities, and one of the pesticides a grape boycott seeks to ban very desperately. She says, every morning when I went to work, I could smell and see pesticides in the grape leaves. Like many farm workers, she was assured by growers and foremen that the pesticides that surrounded her were safe and that they were harmless medicine for the plants. Only after Ramona took her son to specialists in Los Angeles was she told that the pesticides she was exposed to in the fields caused Felipe's deformity. The deep sadness and anger she feels has not subsided. Felipe feels neither sadness nor anger. He dreams of what only a child can hope for. He has the same dream over and over again. In his dream, he grows arms and legs and goes out to play and walk and run with other children his age. This is why in July and August of last year, I embarked on a 36-day unconditional water-only fast. Some of you here have fasted. You know that some great things happen with fasting. Here's what I learned in my ordeal last summer. When you fast for even a day or 2 or 3, I think you will experience some of the same things. Physically, my fast was tortured at first, and then it gave way to a great rejuvenation in my body. I felt cleansed when it was all over. Spiritually, my fast worked like a powerful medicine that kept my spirit from sagging. Any feelings of fear and doubt and anger that I had were wiped away, and I could see things very clearly. I saw the powerful urge that raged within me and drove me to the fast, and I saw my self-doubt and, yes, my shame for not doing enough about this problem. And I asked myself, do I share deeply enough the pain that those who work with the poisons, do I feel their Do I feel their fear of those who have lost babies and miscarriages to cancer and have died? Do I feel the agony of those who ask, where will this deadly plague strike next? And I begin to see other people, the good ones and the bad ones, and I saw the terrible suffering among farm workers and their children, the crushing of farm workers' rights and the death of good faith collective bargaining and the ever-increasing use of pesticides. My experience proved to me the truth of what I believed when I began. The fast is a heartfelt prayer for purification and strengthening for all of us. The fast is an act of penance for those of us in moral authority. And by that I mean all of us who know the difference between right and wrong. We're in moral authority. The fast is a declaration of non-cooperation with those who would put their profits from the sale of California table grapes ahead of tragic human consequences. During the fast, towards the end, I reached a great clarity where I could see exactly what had to be done. See that we needed to build strength to fight the scourge of poisons that threaten our people and our land and our food. And I believe fasting is the most powerful way that you can support the boycott. We're urging you to join with us for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. And we have cards that we want to give to you to sign up and join us in the fast and get others to do. We have hundreds, thousands of people fasting all over the country, and especially labor leaders throughout the United States now. And I believe fasting is the most powerful way we can demonstrate our dislike of what is taking place, and we can let those that are empowered to do something, to let them know that we care. First, by fasting for the boycott, you become involved not only physically but also spiritually with these people. You know, there's a great irony in our country today. These are the men, women, and children whose labor and sweat and sacrifice produce the greatest abundance of food known in the history of mankind, in the history of the world. Yet, the same men, women, and children whose labor produces this abundance of food often don't have enough to eat themselves. If you fast, you'll save a little money. And the longer you fast, the more money you'll save. And thirdly, if you fast and help the boycott, it will also grow on you. Nothing will commit you more to anything than going through the pains of not eating for a day or two. You will remember that for a long time to come. And so we ask you to join with us and to fast if you can. We tell you that many people came to be with us during our fast. Many of you helped carry the burden and took up the fast where I ended, going without food, as I said, and all over America. Workers, teachers, lawyers, artists, mothers, fathers, people in political life in the church communities took up the fast. Because the times we face truly call for all of us to do more, even more, to stop this evil in our midst. It calls for a multiple of simple, nonviolent deeds for justice. The answer lies with you and me. It's not going to be solved by the government. It's not going to be solved in the halls of Congress. It's not going to be solved by magic. It's not going to be solved by a decree. It's going to be solved at the marketplace. We know. We started the campaign on pesticides in 1958. And we've come a long ways. And I have seen nothing being done, nothing really substantial by legislative action or by decree. It has been at the marketplace. And again, it will be at the marketplace. Let's win this boycott, ban the poisons in the grapes. Let's show Congress and everybody else that people can really farm large farming without pesticides and let them take this as an example and then force them to use that example to find the remedies for food that's being poisoned all over this world today. We hope that the fast will continue here. It will grow here, it'll go out to other places from here, and multiply among hundreds of you, and multiply among caring people until every poison grape is off the supermarket shelves. And hope it will endure until the fields are safe for farm workers, the environment is preserved for future generations, and our food is once again a source of nourishment and life. Thank you so much.